The smartphone in your pocket, the shoes on your feet, the coffee maker brewing your morning cup, the chair you're sitting in right now. What do they all have in common? There's a 90% chance they were made in China, or at least assembled there using Chinese components. But this isn't the story you think you know about cheap labor and knockoff products. This is the story of the most sophisticated manufacturing ecosystem ever created, one that took 40 years to build and now controls the flow of goods to every corner of the planet. My name is Mr. Brain, and I've spent the last 5 years traveling through China's industrial heartland, from the neon-lit factories of Shenzhen to the massive container ports of Shanghai. What I discovered will change how you see every product you buy and every company you think you know. Let me take you inside the machine that makes the modern world possible. In 1978, a man named Deng Xiaoping made a decision that would reshape the global economy. He opened China's doors to foreign investment and manufacturing. At the time, China's economy was smaller than Italy's. Today, it's the world's second largest, and when it comes to manufacturing, it's not even close. China produces 28% of all manufactured goods globally. That's more than the United States, Germany, and Japan combined. But these numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is in the details, in the intricate web of suppliers, manufacturers, and logistics networks that make China not just a manufacturing hub, but the manufacturing hub. Let me show you what I mean. Take Apple, the most valuable company in the world. When Tim Cook talks about Apple's supply chain, he's really talking about China. The iPhone has over 200 suppliers, and most of them are in China. Not just the final assembly, but the components, the rare earth minerals, the packaging, even the screws. But Apple didn't choose China just because labor was cheap. They chose China because nowhere else on Earth could deliver the scale, speed, and sophistication they needed. I'll never forget my first visit to Foxconn City in Shenzhen. It's not just a factory, it's a small country. Over 300,000 workers live and work in this complex that stretches for miles. It has its own hospitals, schools, fire department, and even its own television network. Walking through the iPhone assembly line, I watched workers perform the same precise movements thousands of times a day, each person responsible for one tiny step in a process so complex that it takes 400 steps to assemble a single iPhone. The precision is breathtaking. The speed is inhuman. But here's what surprised me most. These aren't the sweatshops of popular imagination. The factories I visited were cleaner than most American hospitals. Workers wore specialized suits to prevent contamination. The air filtration systems were more advanced than what you'd find in most office buildings. This is modern manufacturing, and China has perfected it. The secret isn't just cheap labor anymore. Chinese factory workers today earn more than their counterparts in Mexico or Vietnam. The secret is something economists call industrial clustering. When you need a specific component for your product, you don't have to ship it from across the world. You can probably find it within a 30-minute drive. Need a custom plastic injection mold? There are 50 companies within 10 miles that can make it. Need specialized screws? There's a factory down the street that makes nothing but screws, and they can produce 1 million of them by next week. Need packaging? The box factory is next door. This clustering effect creates something economists call agglomeration benefits. It's why Silicon Valley became the center of tech innovation, and it's why China became the center of global manufacturing. But behind every product, rolling off these assembly lines, is a human story. I met Li Wei, a 28-year-old factory worker from rural Hunan province. Like millions of others, he left his village to work in the factories of Guangdong province. Li works 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week, assembling components for laptops that sell for more than he makes in 3 months. He lives in a dormitory with 7 other workers, sending most of his salary back to his family in the countryside. "My daughter will never have to work in a factory," he told me through a translator. "She's studying computer programming. The factory work I do today pays for her future." This is the story of modern China, a generation sacrificing their present for their children's future. It's the story of the largest human migration in history, as over 200 million people moved from rural areas to industrial cities in just 3 decades. The working conditions have improved dramatically over the years. The factories I visited had strict safety protocols, regular breaks, and wages that, while low by Western standards, represent a path to middle-class life in China. But the human cost is still real. Families separated for months at a time. Young people spending their 20s in dormitories, working jobs that require incredible precision, but offer little creativity or growth. Yet for many, it's still the best opportunity available, and their sacrifice powers the global economy. To understand how deep China's manufacturing dominance goes, you have to understand the supply chain. It's not just about final assembly, it's about every component, every raw material, every step in the process. Take a simple product, like a bicycle. The frame might be welded in one city, the gears manufactured in another, the wheels assembled in a third. The rubber for the tires comes from plantations in Southeast Asia, but it's processed in Chinese factories. The steel for the frame is smelted in Chinese mills. Even the paint is mixed in Chinese chemical plants. By the time that bicycle reaches your local bike shop, it has traveled thousands of miles within China alone, passing through dozens of factories and hundreds of workers' hands. This web of interdependence is what makes China's manufacturing dominance so difficult to challenge. It's not just about competing with one factory or one company. It's about competing with an entire ecosystem that has been optimized over decades. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in early 2020, the world got a glimpse of just how dependent we are on this system. Chinese factories shut down, and within weeks, store shelves around the world started emptying. Car manufacturers couldn't get semiconductors, electronics companies couldn't get components. Even medical equipment was in short supply. The pandemic revealed something that economists had been warning about for years. The global economy had become dangerously dependent on a single country for manufacturing. The port that never sleeps. To see the full scope of China's manufacturing dominance, you have to visit the port of Shanghai. It's the busiest container port in the world, handling more cargo than the next 3 ports combined. Standing on the observation deck at 2 a.m., I watched an endless stream of container ships arriving and departing. Massive cranes, operated by remote control, moved containers with ballet-like precision. Each container represents thousands of products heading to stores around the world. The scale is almost incomprehensible. Shanghai Port handles over 47 million containers per year. If you lined up all those containers end to end, they would stretch from New York to Los Angeles and back again, twice. But Shanghai is just one of China's major ports. The country operates 7 of the world's 10 busiest container ports. This isn't an accident. It's the result of massive government investment in infrastructure over the past 2 decades. China has spent over $1 trillion on ports, highways, railways, and airports. They've built the world's largest high-speed rail network, connecting manufacturing centers to ports in hours instead of days. They've dredged harbors to accommodate the largest container ships ever built. This infrastructure gives Chinese manufacturers a massive advantage. A product made in a factory in central China can reach a port and be on a ship to anywhere in the world within 24 hours. The technology revolution. The story of Chinese manufacturing isn't just about low costs and good infrastructure. It's also about technology. Chinese factories today are among the most automated in the world. At a smartphone factory in Shenzhen, I watched robots perform tasks that would have required hundreds of human workers just a decade ago. Artificial intelligence systems monitor quality control, predicting defects before they happen. Machine learning algorithms optimize production schedules, reducing waste and increasing efficiency. China is investing heavily in what they call Industry 4.0 inches, the integration of digital technology into manufacturing. They're using Internet of Things sensors to monitor every aspect of production, blockchain technology to track supply chains, and artificial intelligence to optimize everything from inventory management to predictive maintenance. This technological revolution is changing the nature of manufacturing. It's no longer just about cheap labor. It's about smart factories that can produce high-quality products at unprecedented scale and speed. Chinese companies are also moving up the value chain. They're not just assembling products designed elsewhere. They're designing and engineering their own products. Companies like Huawei, Xiaomi, and BYD are now global leaders in telecommunications, smartphones, and electric vehicles. The environmental price. But this manufacturing miracle comes with a cost. China is the world's largest polluter, producing more carbon emissions than the United States and Europe combined. The rapid industrialization of the past 4 decades has created environmental challenges on an unprecedented scale. I visited the city of Linfen in Shanghai Province, once called the most polluted city in the world. The air was so thick with smog that you couldn't see buildings a few blocks away. The rivers ran black with industrial waste. The soil was contaminated with heavy metals. This is the hidden cost of cheap manufacturing. Every product that rolls off a Chinese assembly line carries with it a portion of this environmental burden. The true cost of that $5 t-shirt or $20 smartphone includes the pollution created in its production, even if that cost doesn't appear on the price tag. The Chinese government is now investing heavily in clean technology and environmental remediation. They're the world's largest producer of solar panels and wind turbines. They're leading the transition to electric vehicles, but the environmental damage from decades of rapid industrialization will take generations to repair. China's manufacturing dominance isn't just an economic story, it's a geopolitical one. Control over global supply chains gives China enormous leverage in international relations. When tensions rise between China and other countries, the threat of supply chain disruption becomes a powerful diplomatic tool. China produces 90% of the world's rare earth minerals, essential for everything from smartphones to military equipment. They control the production of many critical pharmaceutical ingredients. They manufacture most of the world's solar panels and batteries. This dependence has made many countries uncomfortable. The United States has launched a trade war with China, imposing tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of Chinese goods. The European Union is developing strategies to reduce dependence on Chinese suppliers. Japan and South Korea are offering incentives for companies to move production out of China. But changing global supply chains isn't easy. It takes years to build the infrastructure, train the workers, and develop the supplier networks that make manufacturing possible. Many companies that announced plans to move production out of China have found it more difficult and expensive than expected. The competition emerges. Other countries are trying to challenge China's manufacturing dominance. Vietnam has become a major producer of textiles and electronics. India is investing heavily in manufacturing infrastructure. Mexico is benefiting from companies that want to produce closer to the US market. But none of these countries can match China's scale and sophistication. Vietnam's entire manufacturing output is less than what China produces in a single province. India's infrastructure is decades behind China's. Mexico lacks the supplier networks that make Chinese manufacturing so efficient. The most serious challenge to China's dominance may come from automation. As robots become more capable and less expensive, the advantage of low-cost labor diminishes. Companies may choose to manufacture closer to their customers, using automated factories that require fewer workers. But China is investing heavily in automation too. They're not just trying to maintain their cost advantage, they're trying to maintain their technological advantage. So what does the future hold? Will China maintain its manufacturing dominance, or will production spread to other countries? The answer is probably both. China will likely remain the world's largest manufacturer for decades to come. The infrastructure, supplier networks, and expertise they've built can't be replicated quickly or easily. But other countries will capture larger shares of specific industries, especially as automation reduces the importance of labor costs. The bigger question is whether the world will continue to accept the risks that come with such concentrated manufacturing. The COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical tensions have made many companies and governments rethink their dependence on Chinese manufacturing. We're likely to see more reshoring, companies bringing production back to their home countries. We'll see more nearshoring, companies moving production to countries closer to their customers. And we'll see more friendshoring, companies moving production to countries with similar political systems and values. These changes will take time, and they'll come with costs. Products may become more expensive. Innovation may slow down. The efficiency gains from China's manufacturing ecosystem may be lost. What this means for you, the consumer. As a consumer, China's manufacturing dominance affects almost every purchase you make. The low prices you pay for electronics, clothing, and household goods are possible because of Chinese manufacturing efficiency. The rapid pace of product innovation, especially in technology, is enabled by China's ability to quickly scale production of new products. But this system also creates vulnerabilities. When Chinese factories shut down, products become scarce and prices rise. When geopolitical tensions increase, the products you rely on may become pawns in international disputes. Understanding these dynamics can help you make better decisions as a consumer. When you see a product with an unusually low price, ask yourself what hidden costs might be involved. When you hear about supply chain disruptions, understand that they often trace back to China's central role in global manufacturing. As an investor, China's manufacturing dominance creates both opportunities and risks. Companies that can successfully navigate Chinese supply chains may have significant cost advantages, but companies that are too dependent on Chinese manufacturing may face disruptions when geopolitical tensions rise. Throughout my travels in China, I was struck by the human stories behind the statistics. Every product you buy represents hours of human labor, often performed by people whose names you'll never know and whose faces you'll never see. I met Zhang Min, a quality control inspector at an electronics factory. She examines hundreds of circuit boards every day, looking for defects that could cause products to fail. Her attention to detail ensures that the smartphone you rely on works properly for years. I met Wang Lei, a logistics coordinator who manages the flow of components between factories. His decisions about when to ship parts and how to route deliveries affect whether products reach stores on time and at the right price. These workers are the invisible foundation of the global economy. Their skills, dedication, and sacrifice make possible the abundance of products that we take for granted in the developed world. One of the most surprising discoveries in my research was how much innovation happens in Chinese factories. The stereotype of Chinese manufacturing as simple copying and assembly is decades out of date. At a factory that produces electric vehicle batteries, I met engineers who were developing new battery chemistries that could revolutionize transportation. At a smartphone factory, I saw designers creating new manufacturing processes that could reduce production costs by 30%. Chinese manufacturers are no longer just following designs created elsewhere. They're creating their own intellectual property, filing their own patents, and developing their own brands. This shift from made in China to designed in China represents a fundamental change in the global economy. China's manufacturing dominance creates ripple effects throughout the global economy. When Chinese factories become more efficient, prices fall for consumers worldwide. When Chinese wages rise, it affects labor markets in other countries. When China invests in new technology, it changes the competitive landscape for companies everywhere. These ripple effects aren't always positive. The loss of manufacturing jobs in developed countries has contributed to economic inequality and political instability. The environmental costs of Chinese manufacturing affect global climate change. The concentration of production in China creates systemic risks for the global economy. Understanding these ripple effects is crucial for policymakers, business leaders, and citizens who want to shape the future of the global economy. In conclusion, I want to say that, standing in that Foxconn factory in Shenzhen, watching workers assemble the devices that connect our world, I realized I was witnessing something unprecedented in human history. Never before has one country dominated global manufacturing to this extent. Never before has the production of goods been so concentrated in a single region. This concentration brings enormous benefits: lower prices, faster innovation, and unprecedented variety in the products available to consumers. But it also brings risks, supply chain vulnerabilities, environmental costs, and geopolitical dependencies. The machine that makes everything is a marvel of human organization and technological achievement. It represents the culmination of thousands of years of human progress in manufacturing, logistics, and trade. But it's also a system that's increasingly fragile, increasingly questioned, and increasingly challenged. The future of this system will shape the future of the global economy. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in our next video.